For the 1000th time, I want to apologize, Tracy. I know we'll be having another shower for you in Connecticut, but I wish I could have traveled to Georgia for this one. I had missed my oldest daughter's first baby shower, as I was attending a mandatory quarterly meeting at the home office of the insurance company my agency represented in Connecticut. My dad had started our firm nearly 40 years ago, and I would be taking over the helm when he officially retired in the next couple of years. And for the 1000th time, Mom, don't worry about it. The shower you are hosting in 2 weeks will come soon enough. I can't wait to get back to Connecticut to see all my old friends. Tracy was Zooming me from her home outside of Atlanta, and my husband Chris was on the call from our home in Farmington, Connecticut. I was in my Marriott hotel room in Charlotte, North Carolina. We can't wait for you to get home, Tracy. How are the meetings coming along, Jilly? Chris wanted to know. As always, there's a lot of great material, and I've taken a few key points to implement over the next quarter. But I don't understand why American Insurance insists these meetings need to be in person. The meetings can easily be held online. The cost savings for each agency would be substantial. Like most larger companies, they are stuck in their ways, was Tracy's response, while Chris added, American Insurance has to justify the $15 million cost of the training and meeting center they built just before COVID. What are the boys doing this weekend, and why aren't they on our weekly family call? I wanted to know. The boys are at the cabin in Vermont. I talked to them last night, and they've got a small group of friends with them. They were planning to hike to the top of Mount Mansfield today, Chris explained. Being in Vermont certainly doesn't excuse them from our weekly calls. We installed internet service at the cabin over a decade ago. This is the 3rd week in a row they've neglected their family obligations. If you won't talk to them, I will. Be my guest, was Chris's quick and surprisingly sarcastic-sounding response. Before I could comment, Tracy jumped in and asked, Do you have anything exciting planned for tonight? Not a thing, was my answer. I ordered a room service dinner just before our call. It should be here in the next few minutes. After dinner, I'm going to bed. 4 days of meetings have me exhausted. Sweetheart, we'll be finishing at 11 tomorrow morning. Assuming my flight is on time, I'll be back in Hartford at 3:40 and home before 5. Your itinerary is hanging on the refrigerator. I know when you'll be home. Chris's response made me pause. That was 2 snarky comments in a row. I decided not to say anything, as Tracy was on the call, but I filed it away and would speak to Chris and set things straight after I got home. I need to get going. My dinner will be delivered soon. I love you both. Tracy, we'll talk during the week, and I'll pick you up at the airport in 2 weeks. Chris, I will see you tomorrow. I heard, see you soon, from my daughter, and good night, from Chris before both faces disappeared from my laptop screen. I'll admit to being more than a little upset as I recalled the many I love you proclamations that ended every other call in recent memory. Perhaps, I said to myself, they're as tired as I am. After closing my computer, I got up, pulled the nightshirt I was wearing over my head, and tossed it on the hotel room bed. I walked into the bathroom and spent a few minutes brushing on a minimal amount of makeup. At 49, with shoulder-length blonde hair and blue eyes, most would consider me a very attractive woman. Chris constantly calls me a 10, but after 27 years of marriage, he has to say that. I might have been a 9 when we met at the University of Connecticut during my senior year of college and his 3rd year of law school, but age is creeping in, and I'd rate myself a solid 8 and a cougar. While standing without clothes in front of the full-length mirror, I pull the band from my hair and let it cascade down my neck. After combing my fingers through my locks and shaking my head, my hair looks perfect. I am planning on wearing a gorgeous little black dress. My curves look stunning as the dress falls over my gym-toned thighs and lands 3 inches above my knees. My date wants me to be au naturel, but the girls have started to sag. I think the black, transparent Victoria's Secret that I bought specifically for tonight is in order. I smile several minutes later as I strut into the hotel's dining room and notice several heads turn in my direction. I spot Ted at a corner table and sitting by a window that looks from the 11th floor of the hotel toward downtown Charlotte. Ted's smile turns to a beaming grin as I glide through the tables in his direction. Ted Gleason is the son of the insurance agency owner that covers the Cincinnati, Ohio market. We met 9 years earlier at this quarterly corporate meeting and became friends. 2 years later, we slept together, and since then we've been roommates and love buddies at each quarterly meeting. Ted is married and has 5 children, all pre-teens. Like me, he is on track to take over his father's agency when he retires. Ted isn't bigger, more handsome, or smarter than my husband. He is 12 years younger and can recoup much quicker. After his youngest was born, he had a vasectomy, which allows us to have intimacy without protection. Ted stands as I approach the table, gives me a kiss on the cheek, and holds my chair as I sit. "Is everything all right at home?" Ted wants to know. I'm a little upset that the boys weren't on our call and Chris was a bit snippy, but all in all, things are good. Tracy had a nice baby shower and will be coming home for the Harrington family and friends shower in 2 weeks. How was your family? Ted had left our room to give me privacy and called his family from a quiet part of the lobby. "The kids are all good and excited. I'll be home tomorrow." Leanne was in an angry mood, but I expect she's exhausted from taking care of the kids. As Ted finished, he nodded toward the glass of red wine sitting in front of me, raised his glass, and with a naughty grin said, "To another great conference." And as our glasses clinked together, a third chair was placed at our table immediately to my right. Looking up, I was so surprised at who I saw that words simply jumbled around in my brain. After seating herself, she said, "Hi, cheating woman. How was your room service dinner?" Tracy? Yes, it was a question, even though I was looking into the face of my very pregnant daughter. "Tracy, what the hell are you doing here?" Her smile couldn't have been more condescending as she replied, "I didn't believe Dad when he told us you were a lying, cheating woman. I had to come and see for myself." "Tracy, sweetheart, it's not what you think." I willed my heart to slow down and tried to concentrate on regaining my faculties. "Well, cheating woman, let me tell you what I think. Let's see if I'm wrong. I think you did nothing but lie during our 38-minute family call. I think you have an affair with this jerk," she indicated to Ted, "at each of your quarterly conferences. I think you've crushed Dad. I think you've alienated your family. I think your parents will be ashamed to call you their daughter, and I think the chances of you taking over the firm from Grandpa has been flushed down the toilet." As the tornado in my head reached Class 5 level, Ted quickly stood and announced, "This is a family matter. I'm going to excuse myself so you can deal with this situation in private." I didn't think things could get worse until Tracy smiled sweetly and said, "I would think a genius like you would want to sit down, shut up, and find out how much of a storm you're going to encounter when you get home to Leanne tomorrow." All the color left Ted's face. He turned chalk white. I'm not sure if he sat down or collapsed into his chair. Tracy turned to me and said, "Is that what you like about this jerk? He's a timid individual that does whatever he's told?" The color quickly came back to Ted's face, which turned tomato red from Tracy's insult. He half stood, gripped the table, and looked as if he was going to launch himself at Tracy. Tracy simply laughed and said, "Go ahead. Lay a single finger on my 7-month pregnant body and go to jail." Ted immediately calmed down and found his composure as Tracy continued, "Please order me a glass of wine. This is going to take a few minutes." Tracy pivoted in her chair and faced me, crossed her right leg over her left, folded her hands, and laid them in her lap before continuing. "I'd like to explain a few things to you, Mom. The reason my brothers haven't been on the last few family calls is because they believe Dad and know you're a lying, cheating woman. I don't know who cried harder, the night Dad Zoomed with us and told us what you've done. Jimmy, Johnny, and Dad were bawling at the end of the call. The only reason I wasn't crying is I was positive this was a huge mistake. The private investigator's report didn't sway me. Dad wouldn't show the pictures and video, so I had to waste money I can't afford on plane tickets, a hotel room, and other necessary expenses to come here and see for myself." Tracy, baby. I don't know what your father thinks he knows, but I started to answer. Tracy's hand shot up like a police officer stopping traffic. You don't get it, do you? Dad has proof. He has pictures and video from inside your hotel room. He has proof my mother is a liar. He has proof my mother is a cheater. He has proof my mother is another man's lover. With much more confidence than I felt, and equal amounts of false bravado, I hissed, "We will work as a family, and we will get through this unfortunate incident." My daughter scoffed at me, rolled her eyes, and put her hand over her head, snapping her finger. Our waiter immediately appeared. Tracy turned to the waiter and said, "I'm sorry for being so rude. I wasn't calling you. It was a signal to the deputy." Tracy pointed to the tall and extremely well-built man who appeared behind the waiter. The man stood over Ted and demanded, "Are you Mr. Theodore Gleason?" In a shaky voice, Ted responded, "I am." The deputy continued, "Mr. Gleason, you are served." After dropping a large yellow envelope on the table, the deputy asked, "Are you Mrs. Jillian Harrington?" With tears flowing down my cheek, I nodded. "Mrs. Harrington, you are served." An identical envelope was dropped in front of me. With a maniacal laugh, Tracy looked at Ted and said to him, "You don't need to open it up." She was indicating the envelope. "I'll tell you all about the contents. Leanne is divorcing your worthless back. She's asking for your continued support to run the house until your youngest 3-year-old Petey leaves for college, continued private Catholic school tuition for each of your kids, child support, and maintenance." Tracy looked around the fancy restaurant before continuing, "If I were you, I'd savor every bite of tonight's dinner. I suspect you'll be eating ramen noodles for most of the next 2 decades. Ted had misty eyes and hung his head in defeat before Tracy said, "Oh, Teddy, baby, there's much more. You see, my dad is a very smart lawyer. Other than freeing himself from your lover here." Tracy nodded in my direction. "His only other goal is to mess up your life as completely as possible. He's found a way to do that. Dad studied the prenuptial agreement protecting your 25% ownership in your father's agency. Hats off to your lawyers. The prenup is ironclad. Leanne can't touch it." After giving Ted an ear-to-ear smile, she dropped the bomb. "Leanne can't touch your business, but my dad can." Alienation of affection lawsuits aren't recognized in Ohio, but they are recognized here in North Carolina. Since you alienated the cheating woman's affection here in good old North Carolina, Dad filed suit in Charlotte and expects to win a bundle. Maybe he'll let you continue working as the janitor. Turning her attention back to me, Tracy smiled. "You won't be quit as poor as jerk. Dad is splitting everything down the middle with you. Per the prenup, Dad keeps his interest in his law firm and the Vermont lake house that he inherited from Grandpa and Grandma. You get to keep your 40% interest in Grandpa's insurance agency. However, Leanne is suing you in North Carolina for alienation of affection. She is coming after you hard for destroying the lives of her 5 young children. Good luck. You're going to need it." The tears that had started a few minutes earlier had increased with each cutting word from my daughter. The knot in my stomach threatened to erupt and cover the white linen-covered table in vomit. How my life had turned from a fairy tale to the darkest of nightmares in minutes was still lost to me. Tracy reached out and took the glass of wine that had been ordered an eternity before. Ted and I watched silently as Tracy took a few sips over the next moments, seemingly savoring every taste. When she placed the half-finished glass back on the table, a stream of tears had started. The tears were as heavy as mine and were falling down her cheek. "I won't be coming home for the baby shower you've planned. Please cancel it." Those dozen words were a total shock to my system and amplified by a factor of 10 everything that had happened over the last 15 minutes. I could only stare with my mouth hanging open as Tracy continued, "And I don't want you coming down to Atlanta after my daughter is born. I promise to send you pictures and updates, but until you get your life together, I don't want you involved with my family." As Tracy rose to her feet, a figure stepped up beside her. It was her husband and my son-in-law, Brian. He wrapped his arm around her sobbing body, held her close, and quietly asked, "Did you tell your mom the last part?" Tracy shook her head. "Tracy," he said, in a loving but firm voice. "I can't," she answered. "Will you?" Turning to me, Brian explained, "I might be wrong, but I don't believe there is a way back to Chris. Your affair has been going on for too long. There is a way back to your sons, Tracy, your granddaughter, and me. It will take a lot of work, but we'll be here when you become the woman we need you to be." Brian leaned down and softly kissed my tear-stained cheek before guiding a still-crying Tracy through the dining room. I had the weirdest thought as I watched their retreat. I remembered the boxing highlight clips that Chris loved to watch and felt like I'd taken an uppercut to the jaw and was crumbling to the canvas in the center of a boxing ring. From the perspective of Chris. How I was able to compartmentalize my emotions over the last day and a half was a mystery. I hadn't silenced my phone, and the rings, dings, and buzzes had almost stopped, since Tracy had confronted her mother. Some of the communications had been work-related, while other texts, emails, and voicemails had come from family, friends, and Leanne Gleason, all offering support. The vast majority had been from Jillian, and I had immediately deleted each message. I had conflicting emotions about Tracy's confrontation with Jillian and Jerk. From the start, when I told my children about their mother's treachery and years-long affair, Tracy was adamant that her mother couldn't possibly be that woman. As I refused to give the kids the full private investigator report and accompanying recorded evidence and instead sent each a short 2-page synopsis, there seemed to be some doubts, at least for Tracy. Tracy and my son-in-law Brian hired a Charlotte-based investigator. He was able to get access to Jillian and Jerk's room and provided Tracy with the necessary evidence. Brian had called me and let me know that Jillian had phoned American Insurance and explained that she was sick and wouldn't be attending the last day of meetings. The Charlotte private investigator had confirmed that Jillian was able to get an earlier flight and would be arriving home around 1 p.m. the following day. I had prepared for Jillian's return. Our house was jointly owned, and I couldn't kick her out. It only took a few hours to bag all of Jillian's belongings from the master bedroom and bath and transfer them to a guest room. I'd hired a handyman to install double bolt locks on the master bedroom door and my home office. It wasn't much, but my divorce attorney had advised me I couldn't do more. I'll admit up front that I did do something extra. It was extremely childish, but grotesque, in the way Jillian's quarterly love fests were grotesque to me. I desperately wanted to leave Jillian with a visual impression of my feelings. Each day, since Jillian left for Charlotte, I took my morning bowel movement in the bathroom connected to the guest bedroom and hadn't flushed. There were 5 piles of man-sized turds filling the toilet and over the water line. I'd closed off the bedroom door, but the smell still permeated the entire second floor. What made me laugh was, like my farts, the smell of my poop didn't bother me. In fact, as I'd half-jokingly told Jillian hundreds of times, my waste smelled like petunias to me. Although I was prepared for the upcoming confrontation, I did cringe when I heard the garage door opening. I was sitting in a fenced-off section of our backyard. We had built a small barbecue and dining area, and further to the left was a large in-ground pool surrounded by a concrete deck. Originally, I had tried to landscape the area. The result was far less than I imagined, so I hired a professional. 7 years later, our private area, filled with blossoming flowers and lush greens, could easily be part of a Better Homes and Gardens magazine article. Jillian and I were proud to host outdoor parties during the spring, summer, and early fall. I heard Jillian call out several times from inside the house before the slider opened and she walked out. She spotted me immediately, sitting at our outdoor dining table, and as she approached, she asked, "Can I have a beer too?" "Of course," I answered. Unlike every other time she asked, I remained seated and didn't offer to pour her drink. With an almost silent huff, Jillian went to the outdoor refrigerator, found a craft beer, and poured it into a chilled glass. After returning, Jillian sat opposite me, took a sip of beer, and said, "I'm sorry." I studied her face for a few moments. I recognized that she had recently touched up her makeup, but it didn't hide her swollen eyes. She'd been crying a lot. "What are you sorry about?" I questioned. Jillian clenched her jaw in irritation before saying, "I'm sorry I've hurt you, and I'm devastated that I've damaged my relationship with our children." "Liar!" I roared. Her nostrils flared as she leaned into the table and hissed, "How dare you call me a—" My body shaking as I chuckled caused Jillian to stop short. "How was your room service diner last night?" That's lie number 1. How many more of the 10,000 or so lies do you want me to recount? We silently appraised each other, and each took a sip of beer. "Nevertheless," she continued, "I am sorry." There was more awkward silence before I answered, "Okay, you're sorry." And after a few more moments, I continued with a shrug and said, "I don't care." "You don't care about our family?" she questioned. "For Christ's sake, Jillian!" "Tracy is married and lives in Atlanta. She's starting her own family. Jim is starting his career with a top engineering firm in Albany. John will finish at Fordham University in June and has already told us he's staying in New York City and wants to work on Wall Street. We've done a great job and our kids are spectacular people, but they don't need us like they used to." "But we need to support them!" Jillian nearly screamed. "And we will. We'll each support them to the best of our ability. Unfortunately, we'll each be doing it alone." Jillian tried to interrupt, but I continued. "You've been a good mother, and I don't have a single doubt that you'll continue to give each of the kids the support they need. However, you suck at being a loving and faithful wife. I don't like you. I don't trust you. I don't respect you." "I'm going to fight the divorce," she declared. "Of course you will. You'll fight because you are a selfish woman and you don't give a damn about me." This time, the silence lasted a few minutes. We were each lost in our own thoughts. "Why did you involve the kids so early in the process?" Jillian finally asked. "I needed them to provide DNA samples so I could make sure I was their biological father." Jillian's eyes nearly exploded from her head. They were so wide. "You couldn't possibly believe I would." For the second time, Jillian couldn't finish a sentence. "I know for a fact that you are a lying, cheating woman. I just don't know when it started or how many men you have been with." After another shrug, I said, "And since I don't believe a word from you, I'll never know the answers to those questions. But I do know with a 100% certainty that all 3 kids are mine. The paternity tests prove it." My laugh was totally unexpected, and I leaned across the table in Jillian's direction. "Just so you know," I told her in my most menacing voice, "if I had learned that any of our children weren't mine, you'd be in the trunk of my car right now, and I'd be driving to Vermont to bury your corpse in the middle of the woods." My statement stunned each of us, but seemed to amuse my guest, who was emerging from our pool. The slight splashes and throaty laugh caused Jillian to spin around. "What the hell are you doing here?" Jillian angrily yelled. "Hi, Jilly. Welcome home," was Mickey's smiling response. "Bury her corpse? Where did that come from?" That was her rhetorical question to me. We both watched Mickey, me with a great deal of appreciation, and Jillian with a quickly building rage. Jillian and Mickey have been best friends since freshman year at the University of Connecticut. They roomed together since sophomore year, talked to each other almost daily, and never failed to get together for coffee, a drink, or a meal each week. Mickey was a nurse by education and currently was the director of nursing at the largest Hartford area hospital. Mickey had divorced her serial cheating husband nearly 4 years earlier, and Jillian and I had supported our friend at every opportunity. Both women were on the taller side at 5 foot 10 inches, with very pretty faces and bodies that could tempt a priest. However, there were big differences. Jillian was beautiful and curvy, while Mickey was sleek and athletic. Mickey walked to the refrigerator, grabbed a beer, and as she plopped herself next to me, chugged a few gulps. "You told him?" Jillian shrieked. Mickey took another long sip before responding. "I'm ashamed to say it took me nearly 2 days to decide to tell Chris and 2 more days to set up a meeting with him. I'm not ashamed to say I did the right thing and told my friend about your treachery." "You traitor! We've been friends for over 30 years. "Well," Mickey sighed, "all good things need to come to an end." After a slight pause, she continued, "I doubt it will make a difference, but Chris already knew you were an unfaithful spouse." Jillian's gaze shifted back to me. "Leanne Gleason told me. It turns out that Jerk gave her an STD. She was able to pull some strings through family members and got the cure without reporting through official channels. She hired a private investigator and stopped having intimacy with him. It didn't take long to discover your long-term affair as well as several other shorter-term affairs with other married women." Jillian flinched as I continued. "Leanne and I kept in touch, and I hired a private investigator when you both attended the Overnight Industry Conference in Washington, D.C. last month. That's where we got the disgusting pictures and videos for our divorce attorneys. I've been planning my escape since then." "When did you two start a relationship?" Jillian wanted to know. "You worthless pig," Mickey exploded. "Do you even know your husband? I've offered. Oh God, have I offered? But he hasn't touched me, and he won't, until after the divorce." Mickey stood and leaned over the table and got as close as possible to Jillian before saying, "Once the divorce is official, I'm going to give him love all day, every day, until he gets sick of me. And I'll promise you this, sister, he's never going to get sick of me." Mickey turned to me, held out her hand, and said, "You promised me lunch." After taking her hand, I took a last look at Jillian. I wanted to end with one last biting comment, but all I saw in her eyes was pain and defeat. It won't surprise anyone that Jillian finally kept one promise and fought the divorce. Mandated marriage counseling lasted for 3 sessions. I participated because it was ordered. When Dr. Cohen nearly begged, "Please, I'd like you to tell me one, just one, redeeming feature of your marriage." It didn't take me long to answer, "We make and raise great children." There were smiles all around until I continued, "It's too bad she hates our children so much that she destroyed our family." That ended our sessions, and 8 months later, our marriage was legally dissolved. I remember moping around on the night I received the decree. Around 8:15, there was a knock on the door. When I opened the door, Mickey was on the front porch dressed in a knee-length raincoat. She quickly looked around and confirmed my neighbors weren't walking their dogs, and she dropped the coat to the porch. Mickey and I became buddies for the next several months. The love was incredible, but a strange thing happened. I'd considered her a best friend while married to Jillian. We seemed to lose something in the love, and our close friendship turned into something else. After 4 or 5 months, with a happy mood, Mickey gave me a call. "Hey, lover, can you take a pretty woman out to dinner on Friday?" I laughed and answered, "Your wish is my command." There were several seconds of silence. I thought we'd been disconnected until Mickey said, "I'm bringing my older sister. I want you to meet her." "Meet your sister? I've known Jan for decades." I heard Mickey sigh before admitting, "She's perfect for you, Chris." I heard a nearly silent sob when she finished. This time, the silence between us was much longer. Mickey's continued crying and my occasional grunt let us each know the call hadn't ended. "You can bring Jan, if I can bring a client. He's perfect for you." By the time our appetizers were brought to our table by the waiter, I was engrossed in a conversation with Jan and Mickey, and Kevin didn't know we existed. Jan and I got together 2 or 3 times a week, and we double-dated with Mickey and Kevin once or twice a month. I quickly fell head over heels in love with Jan and could tell by the endearing looks between Kevin and Mickey that they were also in love. Making things even better, Mickey returned to best friend status. Mickey and Kevin were married in a traditional church ceremony 8 months later. Jan and I followed 6 weeks after in a much more casual beach ceremony. We were joined by our combined 6 children, their families, and a small group of intimate friends. I didn't see Jillian for 3 years. We were together for my son Jim's wedding, and Jillian was with her husband Michael. 2 years later, John was married, and Jillian attended with her husband Claude. Tragically, Jillian's parents were killed together in an automobile accident. I was told by Jillian's 4th husband, Anthony, that my eulogy was a great tribute to her parents. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.